December 1st, 2025, Charlotte, North Carolina. Denny Hamlin walks into a federal courthouse, not for a press conference, not for a trophy, but for a trial with his own name on the lawsuit. Sitting beside him is his business partner, Michael Jordan. In a few hours, Hamlin will sit on a witness stand and tell a jury that the sport that made him famous might be failing the people who race for it. This is the story NASCAR never wanted decided in front of a jury and the public. Most fans know Denny Hamlin as a championship-caliber driver. Fewer know he's also a 40% owner of 23XI Racing, the team he co-founded with Jordan. On the stand, Hamlin testified that he has personally invested $45 million into the team, and under cross-examination admitted he is on the hook for more than $10 million in loans tied to that investment. Jordan, the majority owner, testified he has put in between $35 and $40 million of his own money. Two of the most recognizable names in American sports were suing the very organization that sanctions their races. Before we get into how this trial nearly blew up NASCAR's business model, hit subscribe. We're closing in on 500 subscribers here on NASCAR Racing World, and every single one of you watching right now is part of how we get there. A like, a comment, or a share cost you nothing, but it tells us exactly what kind of breakdowns you want more of, and honestly, your support is what keeps this channel pushing out content like this. Okay, back to the courtroom. The root of the conflict was the charter system, NASCAR's version of a franchise model that guarantees teams a starting spot in every Cup Series race and a fixed base of revenue. In 2024, NASCAR presented teams with a new charter agreement and gave them until September 6 to sign, 2 days before the playoffs began at Atlanta. According to people who spoke to the Associated Press, teams felt threatened and coerced into signing. 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports refused. Instead, on October 2, 2024, both teams filed an antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR, alleging the charter system amounted to anti-competitive control over team economics, with the France family running it like a closed system. The lawsuit got personal fast. During discovery, a text Hamlin sent to his partners surfaced: "I am in for the fight with NASCAR." It was a short message, but it told you everything about where his head was. This wasn't a business dispute being handled quietly between lawyers. It was a driver telling his own team he was willing to go to war with the league that employed him. By the time the case reached trial in December 2025, the numbers on the table were staggering. An economist testifying for 23XI and Front Row told the jury that NASCAR owed the two teams a combined $364.7 million in damages and had shorted all 36 chartered teams roughly $1.06 billion between 2021 and 2024. The court had already ruled that NASCAR held a monopoly, since it sanctions the races, owns more than half the tracks, and requires teams to use a single source for race cars. Jordan testified that other team owners had been intimidated into silence by NASCAR, and that the litigation was happening, in his words, for every team in NASCAR that isn't being treated fairly. Hamlin's answer to nearly every hard question from NASCAR's attorneys became something close to a mantra: documents don't lie. The financial stakes were not one-sided. If the jury sided with 23XI and Front Row, the judge had the power to triple the damages, potentially forcing NASCAR to sell off tracks or dismantle the charter system entirely. Hamlin told the jury he makes roughly $14 million annually as a driver, separate from his ownership stake, and said his 23XI prospectus had originally projected a modest $900,000 profit in the team's first year. The trial also exposed messages NASCAR executives had sent about team owners, including NASCAR President Steve Phelps, who admitted on the stand, "I have a text that I sent and I am not proud of it." Longtime owner Richard Childress, who had signed NASCAR's agreement, testified that the money in dispute should be going into my bank account. Off the track, the fanbase split in half. It escalated when Hamlin called an ESPN report a propaganda piece and suggested part of the fanbase had been shaped by years of one-sided coverage. The reaction was immediate and loud. One fan, Michael Daly, fired back directly at Hamlin, accusing his own team of driving up costs across the garage and telling him flatly, "Withdraw this suit." Another fan, Chuck Nance, didn't reject Hamlin's case outright but pushed back on his tone, writing, "Maybe calling the fans brainwashed isn't the best call." Hamlin had defenders too, a fan posting as Br Oski framed the lawsuit as a fight for the sport's future itself, ending the post with, "Go get them, Denny." What started as a contract dispute most fans had never thought about a year earlier had turned into a referendum on loyalty, money, and who actually controls NASCAR. The trial was scheduled to run 2 full weeks, and Judge Kenneth Bell had even extended court sessions from 8 hours to 9 in hopes of moving things along. Everyone inside and outside the courtroom was bracing for a jury verdict. Then on day 9, with no public warning, both sides reached a settlement. Outside the courthouse, Jordan kept it simple: "Today's a good day." As part of the deal, both 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports had their charters restored for 2026, and NASCAR agreed to issue all teams an amendment introducing a form of permanent, evergreen charters. The financial terms of the settlement were sealed and have never been released publicly. Nobody outside that courtroom knows exactly what NASCAR agreed to pay, and that may be exactly the point. In the aftermath, Hamlin called the outcome a win for everyone in the sport, saying everything within the settlement is going to grow the sport. Jordan echoed that outside the courthouse, telling reporters, "Compromise in every negotiation is one of the toughest things that you can do," but not everyone in the garage felt like much had actually changed. Months later, 23XI driver Tyler Reddick was asked whether the settlement had shifted the mood inside the team, and his answer was more measured than triumphant. "It's nice it's behind us now. It's done and it's in the past." Broadcaster Kenny Wallace, watching from outside, pointed out the strange business reality that followed. NASCAR and 23XI now share a sponsor in Hardee's, just weeks after suing each other in federal court. Wallace summed it up on his show, "I've heard stories of people suing each other and going to dinner." The unresolved questions didn't disappear with the settlement either. Other team owners who stayed silent during the fight, watching from a distance while Jordan and Hamlin absorbed the legal and financial risk, now have to live with a charter system that changed because two of their competitors were willing to sue for it. NASCAR's leadership, including Phelps, walked away from a trial that put their own private text messages into the public record. And the confidentiality of the financial terms means fans, media, and even other teams are left guessing at what NASCAR actually paid to make this go away. 6 months on, Hamlin says NASCAR has delivered on every promise made in the settlement. The garage looks calm on the surface. 23XI Racing signed its new charter agreement. Reddick opened the 2026 season with 3 straight wins, and the team even won the Daytona 500. But nobody who sat through that trial believes the story is fully closed, because the next time a team owner feels cornered by NASCAR's economics, they now know exactly what tool is sitting on the table. The only question left is whether anyone else will be willing to use it. If you found this breakdown valuable, drop a comment telling us which part of this case surprised you the most, and share this video with another NASCAR fan who still doesn't know how close this sport came to a courtroom verdict. If you enjoy real NASCAR breakdowns like this, you'll like what's coming next, so make sure you're subscribed to NASCAR Racing World before we drop it.